When the millionaire yelled at his secretary, her insane response froze the office forever. The air was thick with tension. Mark Chester, the ruthless millionaire with a scowl that could curdle cream, slammed his fist on the polished oak desk. The sound reverberated through the glass walls of his penthouse office, sending chills down the spines of everyone nearby. His secretary, Clara, stood frozen, a deer caught in headlights. It wasn't just the yelling, it was the madness in his eyes, as if something primal had snapped inside him. A cold sweat clung to Clara's brow, and she could hardly breathe, her heart pounding against her ribcage like a trapped bird. Around them, nervous whispers bubbled up like a pot about to boil over. "Did you see that? It's like he's losing it," someone muttered from the corner, stealing glances at the pair. Clara had always been the unshakable one, the rock in this chaotic sea of corporate sharks. But today, something felt drastically wrong. The vibe shifted. Inside her, a strange sensation gripped her. Was it fear? Or maybe something deeper? The gears of the clock ticked louder, almost mocking the tension in the room. "Clara, get it done. We don't have all day." His voice was edged with something terrifying desperation. It echoed against the backdrop of the city skyline, where ominous clouds stirred like an approaching storm. The window rattled slightly, a reminder of just how small they were against the looming chaos outside. As he glared, Clara felt a wave of an unexplainable force wash over her. It was like a shocking revelation she dared not speak. She felt the lump in her throat, the tightness in her chest. And then, in an instant, her world warped. "Mark," she whispered, her voice trembling. The sound barely left her lips when the unbelievable happened. She could taste the metallic air turning electric. For a split second, everyone in that office sensed a palpable shift. It was as if time stood still, and all eyes were on her. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect." The silence enveloped the room like a heavy fog, and then shock waves rippled through the space. Clara took a bold step forward, her body trembling with fierce uncertainty, eyes glowing with something no one could place. "No, Mark. Not this time." The rebellion in her voice silenced the office. The startled gasps echoed like faint echoes of a haunting. Could it be? Had she really dared to challenge the iron fist that was Mark Chester? Something twisted in his face. Shock turned to rage, boiling just below the surface. Clara felt the walls closing in, the eyes of fellow employees pierced her, curdling the air with their judgment. But all she could focus on was that wild energy vibrating between them. The moment teetered on the edge of chaos. What if nothing could prepare them all for what came next? Amidst the storm of uncertainty, who would walk out of that office unscathed? And what would be the cost of crossing the line? The future felt thick with dread, and Clara was standing right at the precipice, ready to take a leap into the unknown. The weight of Clara's words hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Mark's eyes narrowed, the fury simmering just beneath the surface. His chest heaved, and the color drained from his face, leaving an unsettling shade of white that only fueled the tension in the room. She felt the collective breath of the office held tight, like a live wire humming with energy, ready to spark. "Do you have any idea who you're talking to?" he hissed, his voice low but dripping with venom. The words cut through the quiet like a knife, sharp enough to leave scars. Clara swallowed hard, forcing the rising tide of panic deep into her core. This was it. She had crossed a line, one she never thought she'd dare to approach. "I do, Mark. You're not a god. You're a man. And you can't bully me any longer," she replied, her words steadying like the calm before a storm. The swell of determination rolled through her, igniting a fire she thought had long been extinguished. For a fleeting moment, she felt invincible amid the cataclysm brewing at their feet. But the heat of his rage surged forward, unbridled and terrifying. "Get out!" he bellowed, the command echoing against the glass. People flinched, their eyes darting between the two combatants, seeking safety in their desks. Clara stood firm, pushing her own fear aside. "No," she said, surprising even herself. A mantra formed in her mind, "You're not afraid. You're not afraid." Mark's hand trembled as he gripped the edge of his desk, fingers turning white. "You think this is a game? You're playing with fire, Clara." His voice threatened to combust, the tension building to a boiling point. "Who is to say you're not the one playing games?" She shot back. It was a gamble. Her pulse surged wildly, a hot rush of adrenaline. She took a step closer, feeling the weight of her decision clinging to her. It felt liberating. Dangerous, but liberating. Around them, the voices faded to whispers, the stakes elevating with each heartbeat. "I've watched you treat people like trash, Mark. Your empire of fear stops with me." A flicker of confusion crossed his face. It twisted into a smirk, like he had just turned a corner in a dark maze. "You think you can unravel my empire because of your little coup? You're just a secretary, Clara. And I have more power in my little finger than you have in your whole body." The room went quiet, caught in the current of his icy challenge. Clara's stomach knotted. Power. It was a word that echoed endlessly in corporate hallways. But she had an ace up her sleeve. Something deep inside her wasn't finished yet. She had to dig deeper. "I may just be a secretary, but I'm no longer your puppet," she shot back, her voice suddenly firm. Chills crept across the room. The air crackled with a strange mix of fear and anticipation. An uncharted territory had been breached. Mark stepped back, the realization dawning on him like thunder rolling in. Clara wasn't just standing against him. She was standing for something much bigger. The craziness around them almost seemed to throb. "You don't know what you're messing with. Try me," she whispered, defiance etched with resolve. An ominous silence swallowed the office. Suddenly, a loud crash shattered the moment. The door swung open. The head of security stormed in, eyes wide with urgency. "Mr. Chester. You need to see this. It's urgent." Both Clara and Mark whirled to face the interruption, hearts racing. Whatever was happening outside those office walls was bigger than their confrontation. What storm had gathered just beyond the confines of glass and steel? Clara's heart thudded in her chest. In that split second, everything shifted. What awaited them on the other side of that door? The answers were lurking, threatening to unravel everything she knew. And as fear laced with hope, Clara understood that tonight was just beginning. The atmosphere flickered with tension as the door creaked open wider. The head of security, Jared, rushed in, his face flushed, panic dancing in his eyes. "Mr. Chester, you need to see this now." Mark's irritation turned to irritation mixed with a hint of dread. He turned to Clara, fury momentarily replaced with a glint of uncertainty. "This isn't over." He hissed, his eyes still hot, but concern crept in. Whatever Jared had seen pulled his focus, chipping away at the power dynamic that Clara had finally begun to reclaim. "What is going on?" Clara asked, stepping forward, her heart pounding. The urgency in Jared's expression twisted her stomach into knots. "There's police at the front," he murmured, glancing nervously at the door and then back to Mark. "They're asking for you. Something about the financial statements. It's serious." A chill swept through the room. The mention of police sent a shockwave of whispers fluttering among the employees, their breaths suspended like a fragile tightrope. Mark's bravado cracked, his carefully constructed facade wobbling in the balance of authority and fear. "What do they want?" Mark's voice was taut, like a bowstring pulled to its limit. "I don't know, sir," Jared replied, shifting his weight anxiously. But they seemed adamant about getting to the bottom of some discrepancies. It's not good. A shift occurred in Mark, the realization that his empire could be crumbling around him. He was used to being the king, the one who ruled with an iron fist. But now, Clara felt the waves of uncertainty. This was the moment she had hoped for, yet the stakes were rising still. Did they truly have something on Mark? How could everything change so drastically? Before she could process, Mark took action. Get out. All of you. Now. He barked, a desperate tremor in his voice. Employees scrambled to gather their belongings, uncertainty replacing their earlier machismo. Clara lingered, her mind racing. Clara, Mark snapped, his eyes narrowing. Don't you dare think about staying. She held her ground. This is where I find out the truth, Mark. The atmosphere shifted again, a thick cloud of fear, tension, and adrenaline buzzing through the air. Mark may have had power, but she had the audacity to challenge it, and now it seemed that both of them faced a storm they hadn't anticipated. Through the glass, Clara could see the blue lights flashing outside. Officers moving, urgency in their steps. It felt surreal. A world outside their corporate bubble was crashing in. Are you really willing to risk everything? Mark's voice softened for just a moment, his mask slipping. Clara's gut twisted even tighter. More than you know, she replied, finding strength in her conviction. Each word fell from her lips like stones in still water, creating ripples of defiance. Jared fidgeted, clearly torn about his loyalty. Maybe we should enough. Mark cut in, but his voice was laced with desperation now. Clara, step aside. I'll take care of this. But she couldn't. Not when the truth hung so precariously close. Did he think he could fix this with charm and bravado? Watching him, she felt a poignant blend of anger and sympathy. He was just a man, after all, and even towering figures had weak spots. As Mark stormed towards the door, Clara rushed to stop him. Wait. What if they know something? What if this is bigger than you? He froze, tension thickening around them like an iron chain. Let us find out, she urged. Her fingers gripped the doorframe, grounding her in this new reality. Mark's eyes flickered, rage battling hesitation. The moment hung precariously. Would he step through that door? Would he reveal the secrets that could shatter everything? The sound of footsteps approached fast. Staccato breaths grew louder, signaling the start of a confrontation. Clara, Mark warned, this isn't just about you anymore. But before he could finish, the door swung open, and a figure appeared. The air snapped tight, every heartbeat pulsing like an electric drum. What would the officers reveal? What secrets would come to light that night? And in this fractured moment, Clara held her breath, ready to face whatever would emerge. Would it destroy them both, or could it lead to something even greater? The tension was palpable, and nothing would ever be the same again. The door swung open, and in stepped Detective Harris, a tall figure clad in a dark blue uniform, the badge glinting ominously under the fluorescent light. His expression was serious, eyes scanning the room as if he were ready to pounce at any moment. Behind him stood a second officer, clipboard in hand, ready to take notes. Clara's heart raced. This was it. The moment she had both dreaded and anticipated. Mr. Chester, Detective Harris began, his voice steady, cutting through the thick tension in the air, we need to discuss some irregularities related to your financial records. If you could come with us. Mark straightened, but his bravado crumbled as fear twisted his features. What kind of irregularities? I have nothing to hide. Maybe not, but it's protocol, the detective replied, unflinching. We're here on official business. I'd suggest you comply. The employees who still lingered at the edges of the chaos exchanged worried glances. Their whispers turned into hushed murmurs, eyes darting nervously between the actions unfolding before them. Clara felt the weight of their gazes, a mixture of concern and curiosity gnawing at her. Mark, she urged softly, stepping toward him. If there's something wrong, no. He barked, a wild desperation creeping into his tone. You don't know what you're saying. This could ruin everything. Ruining everything might already be on the table, she argued, her mind racing with thoughts of what could be revealed. We can't run from this. You have to. Detective Harris interrupted, his voice now more than just dispassionate authority. Mr. Chester, can you tell us where you were on the nights of June 14th and 22nd? Mark paled, but Clara didn't miss the flash of panic in his eyes. The dates hung in the air like a noose, threatening to ensnare him in a trap of his own making. I was here, working. You seem very defensive. The detective leaned in, studying Mark with narrowed eyes. Especially for someone who has nothing to hide. Let's just figure this out without any theatrics, Clara interjected, her pulse pounding in her ears. I'm sure there's been a misunderstanding. Clara, stay out of this. Mark snapped, the steel returning to his voice. This is between me and the cops. But it didn't feel that way to her. It felt personal. Clara could sense the shift as the tension wrapped around them, tightening like a noose. Detective Harris ignored Mark's outburst. We have testimonies that suggest you were involved in some suspicious wire transfers. Transfers that weren't accounted for. We need to hear your side. Clara's mind raced, each word echoing through her head. Suspicious? What had Mark done? Her gut nodded, balancing on a tightrope between loyalty and the unsettling truth. She wanted to believe in him, but the weight of the situation threatened to topple her resolve. Mark's eyes flickered to Clara, desperation painted across his face. You don't understand. Then explain. She shot back, unable to keep the edge out of her voice. The officer's presence turned the room into a pressure cooker, emotions bubbling dangerously close to the surface. Miss Smith, the second officer chimed in, voice level. You might want to step back. This could escalate. Let it escalate. Clara shot back, the anger flooding through her, pushing her to confront the situation head-on. You are not the only one being affected, Mark. I deserve the truth. In that moment, everyone froze. Mark's expression shifted from defiance to realization. Clara felt the world narrow down to just the two of them, their chemistry igniting in a swirl of urgency and dread. The detective cleared his throat. Miss Smith, your presence here complicates matters. We need clear and straightforward answers. Mark narrowed his eyes, thoughts swirling before his face hardened. What will it take to end this? The question hung in the air, heavy and charged. Would he break, admit to whatever sins lay beneath, or would he fight until the very end, dragging them both into the abyss? The doors were now wide open, and Clara felt the icy grip of a truth that was ready to erupt. What would happen next? What lies would twist the tale, and how far would Mark go to protect himself? The silence consumed the room, unanswered questions screaming in their wake. The storm was just beginning. Clara felt the weight of silence crashing down, the tension thick enough to slice through. It was as if time itself held its breath. The glare from the fluorescent lights felt sharper now, almost like they were spotlighting the deep fissures cracking into her trust for Mark. Detective Harris leaned in closer, his eyes boring into Mark's. If you're innocent, the truth will set you free. But this evasiveness? He gestured sharply, making the air tingle. It only raises suspicions. Mark swallowed hard, his throat tight. Clara could see the gears turning in his head, battling between confessing and shutting them all out with a wall of silence. She wanted to reach out, comfort him, but how could she? He had been orbiting around some kind of dark secret, and it was finally spilling over into the light. A bead of sweat trickled down Mark's temple, and Clara, still rooted to the spot, could hear the faint hum of the air conditioning. It was a haunting reminder of the mundane world outside, a world where people worried about promotions and deadlines, not police investigations. Mark, Clara said softly, pleading. Please just tell us what is going on. We can figure this out together. Her voice came out shaky, but she forced it to stay steady. Mark flinched, as if she had struck him. You don't get it. There are things you don't know. People involved, dangerous people. His voice echoed, raw and frantic, slicing through the heavy stillness. Clara's heart raced, the mere suggestion of threat tightening her chest. What people? What have you gotten yourself into? The detective stepped forward. You need to focus, Mr. Chester. We can protect you if you're willing to cooperate. Protect me? Mark scoffed, his bravado flickering like a candle in the wind. You don't understand what's at stake. It's not just my career, it's my life. What was beneath the surface? Clara felt drawn into the shadows of his words, swirling with anxious curiosity. Just tell me, she urged again, her voice resolute though her insides churned with dread. I have the right to know. For a moment, Mark stared at her, torn. Did he see the flickering light of hope in her eyes? Or the looming presence of danger? There are accounts, Clara. I thought I could manage it. I thought I could keep it from you. Harris stepped closer, the intensity palpable. What kind of accounts? This is no time for half-truths, Mr. Chester. It's not just money, okay? It's people. I'm mixed up with a loan shark, and he doesn't play nice. The desperation was laced with a venomous truth. If I spill, he'll come for me, maybe for you too. Gasps rippled among the onlookers, all too aware now that this was no ordinary financial blunder. This was a black hole of threats and deceit. Clara's pulse thundered, her thoughts a maelstrom of fear and disbelief. So you chose to hide it? She spat. You chose to put us all in danger, Mark. No. He looked at her, pain etching deeper lines into his face. I was trying to protect you, to protect everyone. And in doing so, you risked everything. The anger burned bright in her chest, but underneath that blaze was an icy grip of terror. What are we going to do? Before he could answer, the second officer cleared his throat, breaking the charged atmosphere. Detective, I'm getting a notification there's been a report about some unusual activity near the bank Mark has dealings with. The detective's expression darkened. What kind of activity? Possible armed individuals seen lingering outside. The word swept through the room like an electric current. Mark stiffened, and Clara's heart plummeted. Danger was here, lurking just beyond the office walls. I need you to come with us, the detective commanded. We need to get you out of here immediately. Mark looked at her, the depth of his fear transparent. Clara, she gritted her teeth. No, we stick together. We face this head-on. The office felt alive now with anxious energy, shadowy figures lurking at the edges of clarity. But the uncertainty loomed large, and Clara couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to spiral further out of control. As they moved toward the exit, a crash echoed down the hall, a sound that sent every heart racing. The officers exchanged glances, urgency clawing at their expressions. This wasn't just an investigation anymore. It was a countdown. Wait! Clara shouted. What if? But before she could finish, the door burst open, and chaos poured in like a rushing tide, leaving Clara breathless and terrified. What had they walked into? Would they emerge unscathed, or would this night become a nightmare that none would escape? The door flew open, slamming against the wall with a harsh crack that echoed in the tense atmosphere. Figures cloaked in shadow lunged forward, a dark wave flooding the room, their faces obscured by masks. Clara's breath caught in her throat as the scene ignited into chaos. Down! Everyone down! Detective Harris barked, the urgency in his voice slicing through the panic. Mark seized Clara's wrist, pulling her behind the nearest desk. Time had warped, everything felt unreal, like they were stuck in a violent nightmare. Bullets ricocheted off the walls, sending pieces of plaster soaring like dust motes in a beam of light. Clara's heart hammered like a drum, each pulse amplifying her fear. She could barely comprehend the shouts and screams blending into a cacophony of terror. Stay down. The detective shielded them with his body, the weight of his authority settling upon Clara like a protective mantle even as the world erupted around them. Mark's face was ashen, mouth agape in shock as he struggled to reconcile this violent reality with the calm of their earlier discussion. "I didn't think I never thought they'd come here, Clara." His eyes were wild, and Clara sensed his turmoil, but it was swallowed by a deeper dread. The people he had entangled himself with were real, and now they were here, hunting him. "Mark, focus," she snapped, grounding herself with surprising resolve. "What do we do?" He hesitated, his fear palpable. She could see him grappling with it, but time dwindled, and they had to act. A loud crash reverberated from the office door. Someone was trying to breach the room. Clara felt nearly paralyzed with the swirling thoughts of escape versus confronting the threat. It was all happening too fast. "Get to the back exit," Detective Harris shouted, his voice booming over the clamor of chaos. They glanced at each other, a moment of silent understanding passing between them. "Stay together. We can't leave without them." Clara pointed to a group of terrified staff huddled in the corner, faces pale, eyes wide. "I'll cover you," Mark yelled, pulling free from her grip, but Clara could see the fear in his eyes, a fear that mirrored her own. "Mark, no!" she cried, but he was already moving toward the doorway, where shadows converged like a dark storm. "Trust me," he shouted back, determination flaring in his gaze before he vanished behind the wall of chaos. Heart racing, Clara glanced at Harris. "What do we do?" Before he could answer, a gunshot rang out, loud and deafening, silencing the room for a split second before the pandemonium erupted again. Another figure appeared at the door, and it was clear they had a mission, every move calculated, every second filled with intent. The detective pushed Clara back further behind the desk. "I'll hold them off. You need to find a way out now." "No," Clara protested, a surge of defiance bubbling up. "I won't leave you. Just go," he ordered, voice fierce. "Find a way to safety. I'll find you once it's clear." Clara had never felt so trapped or helpless. The adrenaline coursing through her made her limbs tingle, and fear gripped her, holding her down like a weight. She could hear shouting, the surge of violent energy wrapping around her like smoke. But then something broke through, an echoing voice, distinct and clear amidst the chaos. "Mark! I know you're in here." It was a voice Clara recognized. A cold dread slithered down her spine. "Clara!" Mark's voice shouted from somewhere deeper within the throng. "Get out! Now!" She moved instinctively, heart racing, driven by the urgency clawing at her. That voice threatened to unravel everything. "Stop!" Detective Harris commanded, urgency lacing his words. "You can't go after him. We need to regroup." But Clara was already moving past him, driven by an instinct sharper than fear. She had to find him. The stakes were too high, the world outside felt distant as Clara raced through the chaos, navigating around fallen bodies and debris. She could hear the fight intensifying, bullets striking with explosive precision. What awaited her in the heart of that turmoil? Would the truth of Mark's past collide violently with their present? Clara's heart thundered as she pushed forward, ready to confront whatever lay ahead, and beneath the echoing chaos, a chilling thought struck her. Was Mark truly the hero she believed him to be, or had she only fallen under a dangerous spell? Clara dashed through the chaos, a surge of adrenaline pushing her into the fray. The air was thick with smoke and panic, and the cries for help twisted her stomach into knots. She spotted movement, a figure wearing dark clothing and a mask, glancing over their shoulder as they pressed onward, a sense of purpose in their strides. "Mark!" she screamed, but the sound was drowned out by the explosive crack of gunfire. Heart pounding, she squeezed past a fallen table, scraping her arm against its edge. The pain was minor, her focus remained laser-sharp. The office was a maze now, a hellscape adorned with splintered furniture and fractured glass. Bodies lay scattered, some still, others writhing in agony. Clara's chest tightened with each step, but she refused to falter. She could not let fear consume her, not now. Suddenly, she spotted him, a figure she recognized, silhouetted against the chaos, struggling against two masked assailants. It was Mark, and the sight of him ignited a fire within her. Mark! She propelled herself forward, dodging debris as she fought against the impending sense of doom. Get back! Mark shouted, grappling with the attackers. His voice cut through the noise like a knife, but she could see he was losing ground. Panic threatened to swallow her whole as she reeled, searching for something, anything that could give her an upper hand, and there was a metal chair lying on its side, glinting in the dim light. Clara grabbed it and rushed toward the fray, her hands trembling but resolute. Screaming a primal battle cry, she swung the chair at the nearest assailant. It connected with a resounding clang, toppling the figure and sending them crashing to the floor. Clara! Mark's eyes widened momentarily, filled with shock. What are you? Just hold on. She urged, pouring every ounce of strength she had into the next swing. She caught the second assailant off guard before he could react, knocking him back with sheer force, but the momentary victory was short-lived. She heard a voice bark an order up behind her, cold and commanding. Get them both. In a flash, more masked figures surged toward them, cutting off their escape. Instinct kicked in, and Mark surged forward, grabbing Clara's arm. Run! He yelled, urgency layering his tone as he propelled her toward a narrow doorway leading to the storage room. The office had transformed into a battlefield, and this was their only chance. She nodded fiercely, panic and adrenaline intertwining as they sprinted for safety. Bullets thudded into the wall beside them, barely missing. Clara felt the heat of danger brush against her skin, each second expectant of the worst. Why are they after you? She gasped, struggling to keep pace as they squeezed through the door. Inside, the room was dim and cluttered, piled papers and dusty boxes piled high against one another. What I was working on, Mark began, but his sentence broke off when an explosion rattled the building, sending a tremor beneath their feet. What were you working on? Clara's heart raced. She could hear the thudding of footsteps closing in, a countdown toward their possible capture. Mark looked desperately around the room, and Clara caught the flicker of fear in his eyes. It's not what you think. I never meant for any of this to happen. What does that even mean? Clara pressed, urgency flooding her voice. Before he could answer, they heard the thrumming of voices, the threats being uttered in the corridor. Time was slipping through her fingers like sand. Then Mark turned to her, desperation mingling with resolve. Stay close. If we get out of here, I promise I'll explain everything. But right then, the door rattled violently, the assailants demanding entry. The walls seemed to pulse with tension, and Clara's stomach knotted as she scanned for any means of escape. How would they break free? Would Clara's trust in Mark save them, or lead them deeper into danger? The mounting confusion and horror clawed at her mind. Was loyal love blinding her to a hidden truth? The door crashed inward, and Clara clenched her fists, heart racing as she prepared for the fight of their lives. Would she discover that the man she cared for harbored secrets far darker than she could imagine? Would they survive the reckoning that approached, or would they succumb to the shadows? The door exploded open, splintering wood flying in all directions as masked figures charged into the small storage room. Clara's heart raced. She barely had time to process their grim faces before Mark pulled her behind a stack of boxes, the dust swirling in the wake of the chaos. Stay quiet. He hissed, his breath coming in sharp bursts. Clara pressed herself against the cold metal of the shelves, her mind racing. She could hear the muffled voices of their attackers murmuring orders and threats, sharp and menacing. Her grip tightened on a broken piece of wood lying on the floor, her only weapon. Was it even a weapon, or just a fragile stick against a storm? They're coming for you, Mark, she whispered, fear slicing through her. What did you get involved in? He glanced back at her, eyes darkened with desperation. It's not like that. I didn't know they were serious. All I wanted was to help. Or to profit. She shot back, her voice barely above a whisper. Mark didn't respond, and the tension in the air grew thick. Clara could feel the pulse of their impending doom, a cold sweat forming on her skin. The sounds of their pursuers were drawing closer, the atmosphere electric with anticipation. The masked figures were scanning the room, searching for any signs of them. Clara held her breath as one of them stepped closer, a shadow looming ominously over their makeshift barricade. Her thoughts raced. Would they be discovered? Would she find the strength to fight? "Mark, we can't stay here. We need a plan," she managed to say, her words fraying at the edges. "There's a window at the back. If we can get to it," Mark started, but the plan dissolved into an urgent hush as the figure turned his body, their eyes meeting for a brief moment. Clara ducked down instinctively, her heart nearly stopping as he peered just inches away. The masked assailant muttered an order into his earpiece, his voice cold and clipped. "They've been spotted. Move in." The door creaked, a reminder of their imminent encirclement. Clara glanced up at Mark, and she could see it in his eyes, a mixture of determination and terror. This was it. "On three, we make a break for the window," Mark whispered, his voice calm but thick with fear. Clara nodded, rubbing her hand against the rough wood for a sense of comfort. 1, 2, 3. They bolted from behind the boxes, Clara's feet pounding against the floor as they darted toward the window. Heart in her throat, she reached it first and flung it open. The rush of cool air brushed against her sweaty skin, invigorating and terrifying all at once. "Come on!" she shouted as Mark pushed past her, the world outside beckoning like a wild escape route. But as they scrambled toward freedom, the solid thud of footsteps behind them stopped Clara dead in her tracks. A masked figure appeared in the doorway, gun raised and eyes glinting with menace. "Stop right there. This ends now." The voice echoed through the storage room, cloaked in authority and threat. The world narrowed. Clara's heart strangled in her chest. Mark's eyes widened, a flicker of resolve flashing over his face. "We can't give up. Not now." She turned to Mark, urgency mixed with fear. "Do you trust me?" "Always," he shouted, but Clara could see him calculating their chance for survival. "Then we jump," she declared, pushing past her fears and clinging to the thought of their freedom. As they leaped into the air, she felt weightless, like their fears couldn't reach them. Would they make it? Or would they crash into a darkness far worse than the danger they were running from? The ground rushed up to meet them. Clara closed her eyes, praying for safety, but as the world blurred, that dreaded thought hung heavy in the air: had they just sealed their fate? What awaited them on the other side? Clara's body hit the ground hard, not with the softness she had hoped for, but with the unforgiving grasp of gravel and dirt. A gasp tore from her lips as the air rushed out, painfully replaced with the scent of earth and desperation. Disoriented, she rolled to the side, catching sight of Mark, who had landed nearby, his face a mask of shock. "Get up!" she shouted, the urgency of their situation propelling her forward. She extended a hand toward him, eyes darting back toward the storage room, where the muffled shouts of their pursuers echoed like thunder. He scrambled up, breathless. "Where do we go?" Panic seeped into his voice. "Anywhere but here," Clara urged, glancing back at the building they'd just escaped. The masked figures stood at the window, rage painted across their faces, pointing and signaling. Sirens wailed in the distance, a rising crescendo that seemed to pulse with their fear. They took off, adrenaline fueling their steps. Clara felt each footfall becoming heavier, like the weight of their choices hung in the air. Where should they turn? This was no longer just about escape, it was survival. "Duck! Over there!" Mark shouted, pointing toward a narrow alley that cut between two brick buildings. They darted into the shadows, pressing against the cool wall. Clara's heart raced as she peeked around the corner. The masked figures were rushing outside, guns drawn. "Did you see them?" one of them barked, scanning the street. "They have to be around here somewhere." Crouched close, Clara could see the determination etched on Mark's face, mirroring her own sense of impending doom. "What the hell did we get ourselves into?" she whispered, the weight of their reality sinking in. I didn't think that they want to kill me. His voice trembled, a mixture of anger and regret. He rubbed his joints, as if the tension would dissolve with friction. They won't stop until they find us, Clara said, feeling more resolute than she wanted to be. We need to know what we're up against. If they're willing to go this far, a shiver ran down her spine. Clara, he started, but she waved him off. We need to find something, anything that might give us a clue, she insisted, peering again into the street as the figures formed a search pattern. Like what? Mark shot back, exasperated. You expect to find a treasure map in the alley? Or a phone, or maybe there's a way to call for help. Clara kept her hands tense, heart racing as their pursuers dismissed the area, their shouting fading into the distance. Let us move, Mark whispered, determined. They darted across to the next block, where Clara spotted a car parked beneath a flickering streetlight. Mark. That could be our ticket, she said, pointing. As they approached the vehicle, hope surged. But then, Clara's heart dropped. The engine was still on, and the whole thing felt wrong. Suddenly, a voice echoed. What do you think you're doing? They spun around, nearly colliding with a figure, another masked intruder, grinning with menace, stepping out from the shadows. Game's over, kids. Run. Clara screamed. They took off again, not knowing where they were heading, only that each heartbeat felt like a countdown. As they rounded another corner, the masked figure was on their heels. Clara felt the rush of fear tightening her chest, the night growing darker with every step. They barreled into an abandoned building, the doors slamming shut behind them. They can't find us here, they won't dare. Mark panted, collapsing against the wall. Clara leaned beside him, breathless, but the echo of hurried footsteps came closer. Mark, it's not over. The answer to their desperate flight loomed in the dust and darkness. She could feel it, their nightmare was just beginning. What if they want something more than just revenge? Mark asked, wide-eyed. I don't know, but we have to find out before it's too late. Suddenly, a loud crash shattered their moment of reflection as the door flew open, a figure silhouetted against the light. Gotcha! He shouted, a laugh that sent chills down Clara's spine. Would this be the end of their fight? Or the beginning of an even darker ordeal? The room erupted into chaos as the figure lunged forward, but Clara and Mark were fueled by fear and desperation. Mark sprang to his feet, grabbing a splintered piece of wood from the ground. The sudden surge of adrenaline sharpened his instinct. Back! Get back! He shouted, brandishing the makeshift weapon like it was a sword, and Clara mirrored the defensive stance beside him, digging her heels into the ground. Who are you? Mark demanded, his voice steady despite the tremor lacing through him. The assailant's grin was nothing short of sadistic. You really don't know? The game has only just begun. Before he could move, Clara rushed forward, the weight of her fear propelling her faster than she'd ever thought possible. She swung the broken wood, connecting with the figure's shoulder, sending him crashing to the floor. He bounced back up, unfazed and furious. Run! She yelled again, but Mark was already taking charge. He grabbed Clara's hand and yanked her through a narrow passage at the back of the room, their only chance of escape. Where are we going? Clara gasped, breathless. Anywhere that isn't here. Mark answered, his grip on her tightening. They dashed through the darkness, hearts pounding in time with their hurried steps. The echoes of their pursuers' shouts faded, diluting the fear in their veins as they reached an exit. Bursting through the door, they found themselves in an alleyway. Moonlight spilled through cracks in the buildings, illuminating their path. Clara took a moment to catch her breath, the adrenaline finally settling into a fierce determination. What do we do now? They won't just give up. We need a plan, Mark said, running a hand through his hair. We have to be smart about this. Smart? Clara scoffed, frustration spilling over. Do you know what you've dragged us into? We're dealing with dangerous people. I know. Mark shot back, anger flashing in his eyes. You think I wanted to? This wasn't supposed to happen. I thought I could handle it. Handle it? Her voice was rising, fueled by both fear and frustration. You think you can sidestep vengeance? This is real, Mark. Taking a shaky breath, he ran a hand down his face. All right, I messed up. But we need to figure out a way to fix this for us. Clara's heart ached at the vulnerability in his eyes. Was this the man she thought she knew? With each passing second, the realization struck harder, that trust was as fragile as glass. What do we need to do? She asked, trying to infuse strength into her voice. We find evidence that proves I'm not in this alone. Something concrete that will show the truth. The cops can protect us. Fear dripped from her every word. But there's nowhere safe anymore. Mark's eyes flickered with determination. We can't be defeated like this. We need to locate the person who can give us that info. Who? She pressed. The accountant. She knows the whole operation. If we can reach her, we can clear my name and expose this whole ring. Okay, Clara agreed, adrenaline surging again. But that means we need to move fast. Right, he nodded fiercely, looking down the alley for signs of escape. Let us go. They took off again, hearts high with urgency, but dread danced beneath it. What awaited them at the end of their path? Would they face danger head-on, or was the abyss waiting, ready to swallow them whole? As they neared the street corner, Clara's stomach dropped. She spotted a familiar figure leaning against a lamppost. Detective Harris. His face was grim but relieved until he saw them move forward. Mark. Clara. You need to get somewhere safe back inside. His tone was harsh, filled with a dire warning. No time. Mark shot back. We need to find the accountant. She can help us. Are you out of your mind? Harris pushed off the lamppost. You're not thinking clearly. Those men are looking for you like wolves. You're a target. We know that, Clara interjected, fighting through their desperation instead of sinking into fear. But we're also in this together. Look, I can't protect you unless you cooperate. Help us make this right, and then we'll go together, Mark insisted. Harris hesitated. Clara could see the inner struggle. Okay, let us do this quick. You have to follow my lead. But if we do this, you're putting everything at risk. Clara felt the weight of those words, the gravity settling in. They were entwined, and uncertainty loomed like the dark clouds overhead, a storm gathering. As they approached the accountant's office, the familiar sense of dread crept back, both like an old friend and an enemy. The closer they drew, the more her heart pounded. They were walking the line, their lives hanging in the balance. Would justice prevail, or would they be crushed in the pursuit of truth? Mark glanced at Clara, his expression more serious than ever. Whatever happens next, we do this together. And with that, with the understanding hanging between them, it wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about finally facing the truth, no matter how dark it might be. They moved forward, stepping into the eye of the storm, unsure whether they would emerge battered, victorious, or caught in the tempest of chaos. This was their moment. And as the door hung open like an invitation to fate, they took a deep breath, determined to face whatever awaited them on the other side. But as they stepped inside, time felt suspended. Would they finally uncover the web of deceit swirling around them? The answers waited, cloaked in shadows, but Clara felt a spark of hope flicker within her. Now it was time to see who would rise from the ashes. The clock was ticking, and the stakes had never been higher. Now, as you reflect on the wild ride that has left us breathless, I need you to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will continue this journey. Smash the like button now, feed that algorithm and show your support. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this shocking climax. I want to hear from each and every one of you. And finally, Instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is a moment where true fans show their dedication. Don't wait even one more second. Let's keep this incredible community alive and thriving.